The big deal news headline out of the world of politics today was the Republican Party's filibuster of Wall Street reform. But there was supposed to be another big deal thing in politics today. Today was supposed to be the day that Democratic Senator John Kerry and Republican Senator Lindsey Graham announced bipartisan climate change legislation. That announcement, as you probably noticed, did not happen today. Why didn't it happen? Because Lindsey Graham got very mad. He scuttled his own climate legislation because he says he's angry that the Obama administration might bring up the issue of immigration reform first. Quote, "This comes out of left field. We haven't done anything to prepare the body or the country for immigration." Senator Graham's anger has been seconded now by the top Republican in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, who said yesterday this isn't, quote, "the right time to do immigration reform." Republicans bending over backwards right now, doing everything they possibly can, scuttling their own legislation announcements if they need to, in order to make sure that immigration reform does not come up. Remember when George W. Bush said he wanted to do immigration reform in 2007? Again, it was his own party, the Republicans, who bent over backwards and delivered their own president a huge political defeat on this issue because they were so desperate to not do immigration reform at the federal level. And the fact that it continues to not happen at the federal level is all the justification that some states need right now to deal with immigration on their own, which is how we got this.
The bill I'm about to sign into law, Senate Bill 1070, represents another tool for our state to use as we work to solve a crisis that we did not create and the federal government has refused to fix.
And so the state of Arizona now has a new law requiring police officers to demand the paperwork of anyone who looks like they might be an illegal immigrant.
What does an illegal immigrant look like? Does it look like me?
I do not know. I do not know what an illegal immigrant looks like. I can tell you that I think that there are people in Arizona that assume they know what an illegal immigrant looks like.
In the meantime, papers, please. Before this bill was actually signed into law, we told you about the guy who introduced it in the first place. It's this guy, Republican State Senator Russell Pierce. Mr. Pierce is famous in Arizona for having sent an email to his supporters that included a white nationalist screed, accusing the media of pushing the view of, quote, "a world in which every voice proclaims the equality of the races, the inerrant nature of the Jewish, quote, Holocaust tale, the wickedness of attempting to halt the flood of non-white aliens pouring across our borders." Mr. Pierce sent that around to all of his supporters, a move he later apologized for. Russell Pierce is also famous for having been caught on tape hugging a neo-Nazi. No, like a real neo-Nazi, not some sort of metaphorical Godwin's Law invoking neo-Nazi, but an actual neo-Nazi guy. See with the swastikas? Russell Pierce is the guy who introduced this radical immigration bill in Arizona that just became law. But if you want to meet the guy who's taking credit for writing the new law, that would be a gentleman named Chris Kobach. Chris Kobach is a birther. He's running for Secretary of State in Kansas right now. His campaign website today brags, quote, "Kobach wins one in Arizona." The guy that helped write Arizona's new immigration bill is also an attorney for the Immigration Reform Law Institute. That's the legal arm of an immigration group that's called FAIR, the Federation for American Immigration Reform. FAIR was founded in 1979 by a man named John Tanton. Mr. Tanton's still listed as a member of FAIR's board of directors. Just for some insight into where John Tanton and FAIR are coming from, 7 years after he started FAIR, Mr. Tanton wrote this, quote, "To govern is to populate. Will the present majority peaceably hand over its political power to a group that is simply more fertile? As whites see their power and control over their lives declining, will they simply go quietly into the night, or will there be an explosion?" That's FAIR, who helped write Arizona's new anti-immigrant law. After John Tanton got FAIR off the ground, for 9 of the first years of the group's existence, the group reportedly received more than $1 million in funding from something called the Pioneer Fund. The Pioneer Fund describes itself as a group formed, quote, "in the Darwinian Galtonian evolutionary tradition and the eugenics movement." For the last 70 years, the Pioneer Fund has funded controversial research about race and intelligence, essentially aimed at proving the racial superiority of white people. The group's original mandate was to promote the genes of those, quote, deemed to be descended predominantly from white persons who settled in the original 13 states prior to the adoption of the Constitution. John Tanton's organization, FAIR, which, again, claims credit for writing Arizona's new anti-immigrant law, John Tanton's FAIR was long bankrolled by the Pioneer Fund, which actually makes sense after you read some more of Mr. Tanton's writings. Quote, I've come to the point of view that for European American society and culture to persist requires a European American majority, and a clear one at that. In 1997, John Tanton told the Detroit Free Press that America will soon be overrun by illegal immigrants, quote, defecating and creating garbage and looking for jobs. Defecating is the problem, I guess. Again, this genius is the guy whose group is behind Arizona's new radical immigration law. They take credit for writing it. FAIR is bragging about having, quote, assisted Senator Russell Pierce in drafting the language of his Senate bill. In drafting that language, FAIR may have slipped a little something special in there for themselves. FAIR makes a living off of suing local and state governments over immigration laws. Tucked inside Article 8 of Arizona's new law is a provision that if groups like them win their cases, quote, a judge may order that the entity, quote, who brought the action recover court costs and attorney fees, which could create a nice financial boon for the formerly eugenics movement funded, advance the white majority, promote the genetics of white America anti-immigrant group whose attorneys helped write the new law. Congratulations, Arizona. This thing is going to make you really, really, really famous for a really, really, really long time.